Andrew Howell is here with us talking about 83 days. Hey, there's...
You just bust
Welcome.
the open. Did I what? You just bust the open.
Good start. Hey, I'm Walker Whited. I'm an editor and director.
My name is Sean McCain, and I do audio post and color.
And we're co-owners of
I'm not doing it.
Trying to get them to do it at the same time. So we're co-owners of W Squared Media, a post-production house in Atlanta, Georgia. So I grew up watching James Bond movies on FX all the time, watching movies like The Transporter, The Punisher with Tom Jane, you know, all these action movies that really kind of spoke to me. I mean, Die Hard, you know, anything Schwarzenegger. And it really got me into just loving movies and wanting to make them. GoldenEye, that was a big one for me. And I mean, here we are figuring it out, trying to make movies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you grow up with this romantic idea of how it all works perfectly. You come into an industry and you realize it doesn't work perfectly if no one's communicating. Like my favorite films growing up was definitely, I come from sci-fi, so it was Star Wars, but also things like, you know, watching Aliens and Event Horizon, those kind of movies, Predator. And, you know, like you watch it and you're like, oh, they did everything perfectly. And then we get older, we watch behind the scenes and realize, oh, no. They're figuring it out too.
Hiccups all along the way, all kinds of crazy issues.
It's a giant puzzle. And if people are not collaborating, they're not communicating, this puzzle is never going to fit together.
All the way through it, from pre-production to production to what we do, post-production.
And the one thing I actually love most about post-production is we get all these pieces.
Yeah.
And we get sometimes chaos in pieces.
Pieces that don't fit together.
And they don't fit together.
Saw a little bit.
And then we get this amazing opportunity, collaborate with producers and directors and, you know, any other company that might be involved and get to say, hey, how do we get this together? And while it can be stressful at times, it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever got to do.
Yeah, so we started this podcast to talk to the people that we've worked with and figure out what they've learned along the way about this weird industry and how to put the puzzle together. And we just figured let's talk about the puzzle. Let's figure it out. And because no one really knows what they're doing. I don't think so. That's kind of what we learned. No one really knows what they're doing. We're all taking the pieces, jamming them together, and seeing what fits and pretending we know that we know things.
And we smile really nice.
And we smile really nice and go to the red carpets. So we're going to talk to people about post-production, about production, see what they know, and learn from each other. That's the biggest thing. Learn.
Yep. In a minute, you get to hear kind of our conversation with Andrew Howell and how we got to work with him in his project 83 Days, which was an interesting project because by the time we got into post-production, we were on a little bit of a crunch factor trying to meet festivals.
Austin Film Festival, they were trying to get into that,
And then also at the same time, and because of that, we had this crunch factor, but we also, everybody kind of got to wear multiple hats during this project. It turned into like a all hands on deck kind of situation.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was cutting the movie. I think before we had decent equipment, I think I cut this thing on a MacBook Air at the start. Like, it's crazy. I don't know how we got it done. And then it turned over to you for audio and color. And then Andrew wanted to do VFX, right?
I believe he wanted to do VFX.
He wanted a challenge. And
I think it was, again, time and money, actually, I think.
So he did all the VFX, crazy. I mean, he learned how to do it. It makes no sense. And here we are today where it's in consideration or somewhere in the Oscar pipeline.
Yep.
It's being voted on or thought of or looked at for
I just know it's in a bunch of publications.
I mean, it was in Hollywood Reporter. There was an ad for it. It's crazy. I mean.
So for you doing this project, what were some of the more interesting things that made this project interesting?
Well, I mean, the story's crazy about, you know, Andrew. You'll hear it from Andrew. It's a historical film about a kid who was put to death. I mean, it's tragic. It's like it's beautifully told, but it's a tragic story. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
That was an interesting like dichotomy to cut and make sure that you want to watch it, even though it's the saddest freaking thing ever.
Right.
But then talking to him, we started talking about things like the budgets that they had and the script cutting. Craziest thing,
Right.
Cutting 120-page script down to like 20 pages or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And not to just make like a proof of concept. It was you need to be able to
this
tell the
needs to
story
tell a
from
story
beginning to end.
Yeah. And then another great thing that we talked about was reading the markets. I mean, that stuff's impossible. And you'll hear us talk about that. Do you guys have a release date? I mean, nothing, right?
Not yet. Getting close.
Plans.
So.
Elevator pitch almost of 83 days. Let's not go through the whole story, but what is 83
sure.
days?
83 Days is the story of George Stinney Jr., who was the youngest person in U.S. history put to death by the electric chair. And in 1944, he was arrested, tried, convicted, and put to death in 83 days. And he was exonerated in 2014, 70 years after his execution for the crimes he did not commit. So,
how many times have you said that in a mirror? And
got it. I got that one down, man.
So how did your journey begin with starting 83 Days? Like, how did you become involved with 83 Days?
Sure. Well, back to the elevator pitch for a second. Like, look, if you're out there and you're making a film and, you submit to 60 festivals, you tour it at 30, you're in Q&As, you're going to ask that question. Like, what is your film? And you need to be able to like captivate people. And there's little trigger things in there, that like, I think really grab your mind. And when the project was first mentioned to me, kind of dovetailing what you were talking about, Sean, when the project was first mentioned to me, my wife and I, my wife was born and raised in Pryor, Oklahoma. It's right outside of Tulsa. And Summer and I lived, our first house we owned was on 1301 South Frisco, right downtown Tulsa. And it was a block and a half away from what used to be the Frisco tracks. And we, became to know about the Tulsa race riots. And Summer and I took a pretty significant interest in those stories. It's like 15 years ago now that we kind of garnered our first bit of interest in it, and started working on a miniseries, a narrative miniseries about the race riots. And we were trying to, we had saved up some money to try to get together a team to do like a sizzle reels, like what we were calling it, to try to raise about, at the time we needed about 25 million. Now it's probably more like 35, 40, to do, a mini series on the Tulsa race riots. And this story came across my path. One of our producers of the short film, Lucius Baston, had come to me and reached out and said, I know this guy who wrote this film about, the youngest person in U.S. history put to death by the electric chair. Have you thought about it? And so I met with Ray Brown, the executive producer and writer. He had written a 120-page script about 83 Days, about Junior's story. And I said, look, I think this is a great project to cut down into a short film and see if we can't raise money to make a feature out of it. And Ray agreed. And I said, look, can you cut your 120 pages down to like 20? And he's like, you're crazy, no way. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'll put money into it, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, well, would you give my wife a shot at it? And he said, sure. He says, but it can't be a movie trailer. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's like, okay, fair enough. And so Summer went to work. I think she took about 3 weeks, and she cut Ray's script 120 pages down to, I think it was originally 22, and then we cut it again down to 20, and then we stopped at about 20. I had so that's the gist of how I got 83. I could keep going on and on. Sorry.
Yeah. That's insane. 120 to 20 pages. How the heck? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So some of the characters are blended. So the Big Al, the character that Lucius Baston plays, Big Al, was a hybrid character. So Junior went to 2 different jail cells. He was held in county jail before he was moved to Columbia, South Carolina, where he was incarcerated. And so the character that Big Al plays is a hybrid character of the two cellmates that Jeter had. So that's one example. We compiled down our locations just as few as possible. We kept fighting for this like scene that took place on the side of the road in the original script. It was like a dirt road with cars. It was a night scene. That made it expensive and difficult. Even though it was just some old cars pulling up to a crossroads and having a meeting, it was expensive because of the space that would have had to light, unless we picked like the perfect location where we could have lit it cheaply. And it was taxing on the resources for a short film and the budget we had. So we made that meeting happen in the sheriff's office, and it was the meeting where they all get together and they realize that the governor, who's played by David Keith, and Brett Rice, the sheriff, get some information from a local doctor and another character played by Stephen Riddington, that basically they're not sure they have the right girl, they're not sure if they have the right guy. They're not sure what's going on. So it's a little bit of an interesting scene that this sort of shifts the narrative. And I was supposed to be in the cloak of darkness, kind of around, cars and side of the road. And we just shifted that to the sheriff's office because we had already landed this office. And so
that's so interesting because it works so well in the office. Yeah, it's a great scene. Yeah. Speaking of cast, how the heck do you have this cast in a short? Brett Rice, Matthew Bellows, David Keith,
Nadej Bailey.
Her name, Nadej.
Nadej, yeah. Nadej Bailey. Yeah. Nadej was like, we got lucky with Nadej because she was just, she picked up, like, I think we casted her and then she got Best of Enemies or something, or maybe she had it already. And we ended up getting her. So that was awesome. Dijon obviously goes without saying. Dijon's amazing. Casting was like a blend. Ray and I working together to get it put together. So Ray had already picked Dijon prior to my involvement. He was like, "This is the kid we're using," and he had just sort of found him, and he was a gem. He was absolutely dedicated to his craft and so talented. And so that was a no-brainer for me. And it was just really casting around Dijon to see who's going to work. I had just gotten off of a project called American Speed. It was for CMT, NASCAR. It was called NASCAR: The Rise of American Speed for CMT. I was a series cinematographer on that. And I had worked that show, and one of the characters on that show was Matthew Bellows. And so Matthew and I had a working relationship already. So I had reached out to Matthew and I said, "Look, I've got this thing. It's a short film. It's a historical piece," and told him a little bit about it. He was interested. And so I sent him the script. He read it. He was like, "Yeah, I'm on board." So that's how I got Matthew, was through that connection. I worked with Brett Rice on my very first feature film I ever gaffed. It was a film called Red Dirt Rising, that ironically enough used some of the footage. We bought some of the footage for NASCAR: The Rise of American Speed for that project from the guys from Red Dirt. James Suttles was the director on Red Dirt Rising.
I was about to say that. Did James Suttles do that? I thought that sounded familiar. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that was my first feature to gaff, and that was shot on Red number 19, the Red one. Very first.
Oh wow!
So that was kind of wild. Yeah, I was still metering, and I was like, "What is this digital cinema thing?" So I was a little hardcore film guy. Brett, I reached out through his agent, I think, or I don't remember how we got hold of Brett, but I had him in my mind. I enjoyed working with him on Red Dirt. I thought he was a stand-up character. So that was somehow we either got hold of him through his agent or I believe is how we did, and he was responsive and jumped on board.
I remember cutting 83 and just being like, "Who is this guy?" I mean, I was there on set too, but especially in the edit, being like, "This guy's so good."
Yeah.
And then David Keith. I mean, I was awestruck on set with him because I don't know if you knew this, but Behind Enemy Lines is one of my favorite movies, and he plays.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The right hand guy to can't think of any names. Gene Hackman's character. So when he came on set, I was like, oh, that's the guy.
Yeah, David was a hoot, man. He was such a blessing to have him. He was on vacation at the time, and he's like, man, I'm in. He was actually in New Smyrna Beach, and I'm from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, he was in Florida.
Yeah, he's in Florida, and he's like, listen, I'm on this vacation. I was like, look, read the script, tell me what you think. One of my camera operators is friends with a very close friend of his. So that was the connection with David. So it wasn't really an agency thing. It was literally phone a friend.
That's awesome.
So he called and we sent him the script and he's like, yeah, I like it. So he jumped on the phone with him and talked about the film. And he said, look, I'm on vacation with my family. You got to fly me in and fly me out the same day. And so there was a lot of parameters. We were sweating bullets. It's a high risk for us for a short film to be.
If I remember correctly, you shot everything within 3 days, correct?
Yeah. It was it's a 29-minute short, but it was only 18 pages, but it's just cut, it's paced a little slower. But yeah, we shot it in 3.5 days. And, I think we'd originally slated it for 3. So we were very pleased. We picked up an extra half a day on the last day just to get some of the footage that you see in the opening title sequence, which I think really kind of makes the film. So.
Yeah, my remembrance of that film, I was actually, I got a call last minute. They needed a boom op. And so I drove down like middle of the night down to South Georgia or wherever it was at.
Eatonton, right?
Eatonton.
Yeah, Eatonton.
And so the funniest thing I remember about that is like I get there and it was a long day. I want to say it was day 3. It was when we were in the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
In the courthouse. Mm-hmm. And that was my first time meeting, I guess, you. And I had never really officially met you. I think it was kind of like a, hey, how are you? And last shot of the day, we're holding a boom. We're shooting, and my arms gave out, and like there was no more booming. I just remember you were just like, "There's a boom in the shot," and I was just like, remember yelling back, like, "I'm done. I can't do it. My arms are jello. I've been holding them up all day," and I think that was like, and that's the day.
Oh my God. Yeah, for me, I remember like we were struggling. Audio is always so important, and I'm terrified. I'm pretty particular. I was just terrified. I was like, who is this guy? Like, I don't know what's going on. And Ryan was like, trust me, I've got it. It's going to be okay. You're in good hands. And so I was like, all right, whatever. So yeah, but that was our first interaction. I clearly remember you on set that day. I was so thankful to have you, but I was also just terrified. Like, what is going on with my audio? I pray to God there's a track when we get in there.
It was a very random thing for all of us.
Yeah.
Like it was like a late night call. Like, can you get down here? One of our boom ops, I think, like had to go home or got sick or something. So it was like, So it was just like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute, and drove down middle of the night.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing, having to trust Ryan. Ryan, what was Ryan's role? Ryan Dennett Smith.
He was the line producer and production coordinator. Yeah.
So he suggested him to boom, and then he suggested us for post, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So having to just.
Ryan, Summer and Ryan worked together to line produce it, but Ryan did the bulk of the line producing. Summer,
AD'd.
AD'd it. Yeah, more or less on set. Yeah, he basically took the budget and said, yeah, we can't spend it this way. We got to spend it that way. So he really fixed everything, cleaned it up.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah,
that's what he did.
Good.
So then you had to trust his recommendation somehow, and somehow we were lucky enough for you to say, yeah, let's try this in post. What was that like? I mean, just jumping in a post and just, I guess, hoping we can make it work.
Well,
I mean, it's a big budget for how you guys put this together. So
sure. I wanted a boutique shop. I didn't want to go to like a big label. I had looked at some other folks in the Atlanta area, but I wanted to be able to be very hands-on, and I felt like that was something that I was going to get working with you guys. That you weren't going to be intimidated by that. That I was going to be able to sort of play around with some of the stuff, and that's what we did. There was a very collaborative process. We worked hand in hand, and we passed scenes back and forth, and that was a real benefit for me at that point in time. Now, I think if we did the project today, I would look at it
You'd be
differently.
like, do what I want. Shut the hell up.
Yeah. No, I would just have a little more. I wouldn't. I'd be a little less hands on. I think so. Yeah. That's.
Thank God.
But yeah.
No, I remember that was very collaborative, and that's
yeah.
one thing that Sean and I talk about a lot is in post production. That's one of the main things we love about it is the collaboration, being able to say, "Hey, what about this? Have you thought about this?" and have those conversations. So it's cool to hear you say that that's what you were interested in.
And I remember, beyond collaboration, it was like we were all part of the same team. There wasn't like, I'm just going to tell you what to do. I remember at one point I was like, hey, I got to work on coloring these sections if we're going to get done by this point. Can you track this stuff over here for color? And you jumped on a separate computer and you spent all day tracking, I think, like a window or something like that on a car.
That's right. I tracked out the car. I forgot we did the car tracking. Yeah.
Yeah, we tracked that out because we wanted to be able to raise the shadows in the car.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I got to get on this other stuff. I don't think is there any way you could knock that out? And I remember it was because we got into a crunch period at one point. I don't remember what was going on.
Yeah.
But
it was deliverables for Austin Film Festival, which we didn't get into, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
But I remember that was one great thing with when you talk about collaboration, that was something that we still talk about. We really loved it because it was very collaborative. We were all in it together. And if you needed to jump into something, then I think you did VFX. You had to paint stuff out in VFX at times.
Yeah. There's a good bit of there's a lot of demonetization and some fixes in there for sure. Yeah. So I have to thank a filmmaker. His name's Rhett Bear. I remember meeting with him years ago, and he's a well-established. He did a lot of music videos for years. He's a well-established DP, but he taught me that you need to know all the steps of the process. You need to be able to. You don't necessarily need to be able to be the best at them, but you need to understand the steps of the process in order to innovate. And so I'm nowhere near as talented as Rhett is, but I took it upon myself to try to learn as much as I can. I can't do major VFX or anything like that, but some of the basic things are really critical. It'll save you a lot of time and money. And if you're, a young filmmaker trying to get an indie, film done, it can be a budget breaker sometimes. And so for me, it was just digging in and trying to get it done. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I did so much rotoscoping on By Night's End, the first movie we did. And oh my God, never again. Ever.
But I think that's funny because the people you meet that really have moved forward in the industry, a lot of them have had to wear multiple hats. Mm-hmm. I don't think in today's, it's not I just do this one thing. I think most people, and especially in the indie scene, it is wearing multiple hats. In fact, you literally wore multiple hats on this film, and even shooting. If I'm not mistaken, you were directing and DPing at the same time. I think you were also camera operating. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if it was multicam, I was shooting a cam, and if it was single cam, then I had an operator. So Brian Murray was my op, and Brian Murray also shot the second unit stuff. So a lot of the opening title sequence you see and things like that. I had a little breakaway unit that went off while we were setting crane and things like that. So he was DPing the second unit stuff. So yeah.
So with all that, let me ask you this: if you were to do it again, would you rather just direct and have a DP there too, or would you want to do both again?
On this film, on the feature version of this film, I'll have a DP for a feature.
I figure it's a lot to try and manage all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would, on the short film side of things, I love the team that we put together. I felt like it was a culmination of a lot of really amazing people in my life that I wanted to work with for years, and then really talented people that had friends that they wanted to work with. And the community on set was unlike any short film I've ever worked. So just the professionalism, the community, it was excellent. So I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm very proud of the scene that we had, in terms of, the project that we made and the way that we went about making it in terms of honoring the people that were there.
So what was at the end of this, through the whole process, through pre-production, production, and post-production, what would you say was your biggest lesson you took away from all of this? What was the big learning experience from 83 days? Or is there still a learning experience going on now?
Sure.
No pressure.
Yeah, right. The biggest takeaway, I think, is that you could have all the right sponsors and all the right things in place, and the film could be not timed right. It could, I think we were ahead of our time in some ways, because in that made the project difficult to move and sell. And now I think it's probably in a better market to possibly be able to move and sell. So you can make this great project, and the thing that drew me to 83 Days is aside from its obvious, educational and value, like it's not, you don't make a film like 83 Days to entertain people. You make a film like 83 Days to educate people, right? It should be entertaining in its nature. If you want people to tell other people about it and share that story. But as a filmmaker and as a director, my goal was to educate people while entertaining them. Like that's the goal here, is to talk about a horrible historical atrocity. One, so we don't repeat it again, and two, so that we know about it. Like, that it's a powerful moment in history that should be recorded. It should be told well. But doing all those things and picking this project that I think was powerful and evergreen in content in terms of like every Black History Month and every Juneteenth, the story will be told. So I think there's value in that. So it hit all the really important marks for me in terms of finding a project that holds the value that I want to give my time to, because I don't want to just be making films to make films. I want to be making films for a purpose. And this film had a purpose, a deeper purpose. Not only did it have a deeper purpose, but it had a way to potentially perpetuate, to finance that in its evergreen content. And I don't want to be this is a business, and we have to make very difficult decisions when we take on projects as to how we're going to pay for them, or what we're going to, and I saw value in all of that, for me personally, in the storytelling, for the investors and the type of content that is, all of that. So for me, it hit all the marks. Like when I went to make the film, that's the reason that Summer and I doubled down and funded the project and did what we did, because we really saw a vision that it could be sold. But it didn't pan out that way. It didn't sell as quickly as we want. We're still not there yet. We're trying to get there, and that was disappointing. So that's probably the biggest takeaway, is like your timing. You might think that your timing's now, but the market might have a different opinion, and you're not in control of that.
It's hard to tell what that market's gonna do too, and what it wants. I mean, there's a guy that I was talking to recently, like his company, that's what they do, is they sign movies and sell them internationally. And he said to me, I've had movies with no actors in it make six figures, and I've had movies with actors in it bomb and do absolutely nothing. This is his job. This is how he makes money. He said, I don't have an answer on what makes money. He doesn't even know.
Yeah.
He said he's still trying to figure out. So I'm with you on that. The back end stuff doesn't make much sense.
And I think when it all comes down to it, not like he said, it's hard to say, and they don't know. And I think that's truly it. They just don't know. And some people don't want to take a risk. And I get that. Like, I'm a risk taker, obviously, put my money where my mouth is. I made the project. I'm very proud of it. Everybody who worked on this project put their money where their mouth is, including the actors, including all the cast and crew, everybody, down to the production assistants, all of them, and so, now it's up to the market to decide. Now it's up to the community to decide. And I think ultimately it will. If we can't get funding for it, we're gonna use the short film in a way that I think proves itself in the future. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Well, you're in a good spot for it now. I mean, with can you say Oscar consideration or Oscar voting? I don't know how you phrase it at this point, but
yeah, it's not consideration yet. I think it's we're in the screening room with the Oscars. Hope we'll see. Hopefully,
it's wannabe Oscar consideration.
Yeah, right. It's definitely wannabe. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can talk hypotheticals and potentials. What are the potentials from here? It's Oscar potential consideration. What happens after that if it goes?
Sure. If it goes through and it gets selected as one of the, I don't know, I think there's 15 narrative short films that could be be in consideration. So if it becomes one of those 15 out of, I don't know how many, I'd say several hundred, but I have no idea how many are actually in that pool. But then it goes into the screening for the senior members, the senior academy members, and then if it got selected, then
so Will Smith's not seeing it, I guess.
Yeah,
probably not yet. Not yet. Oh, no, not happening anytime soon.
Well, that's super interesting, and it's all thanks to post production. So.
Yeah. You're welcome,
right.
Andrew.
Dude, seriously.
So I mean, with this, do you have any projects you're looking at doing?
This is the main one on the table right now. We've got I've got a really fun story that my wife's writing on that's based on a true story out of the Dominican Republic of kind of a love story of a girl who grew up in like the favelas, like the barrios of the Dominican Republic, and she was dating.
That's so much fun.
She's dating a bourgeoisie's like a upper class politician's son, and I'll kind of leave it at that. So that's
cool.
fun.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, if you have to go to the Dominican Republic to film, I proved to you I can boom op.
Yeah. Sean will be.
I will be there.
Nice. Yeah. So that's one that we're kind of kicking around right now. We're not actively out. Like we're semi-retired, I guess. I'm working a kind of a second career, and at this point, we're really looking for projects to either make ourselves or projects that people are like, "Man, I love your work. I want you to come out," and we want to tell stories that make a difference and matter. And so a lot of our stories are based on real life. That's the kind of projects we're looking for. So that's fun. And then still working on Ink to Ashes, the Tulsa Race Riot story. We've got 13 episodes kind of outlined, and a bunch of, I think the first 7 episodes are written. So that's coming along. And then, just I should give a shout out to Stacy, our publicist. She's worked so hard on 83 Days trying to get it in front of the right people and trying to promote it. She's the one out there on Facebook right now pushing it and really working hard. She's carried the torch. I pushed it on social media for a while, and she's really taken over and really gone the extra mile. She's the one that's got us connected with innovative, and that's exciting as well. So we're hopeful that that this next push will bring somebody to the table who's really eager to tell the story and to catch the vision like that Ray and I had for it, and get out there and make a movie, make a feature about it. The feature film is amazing. The short film is really kind of a shock and awe story. It's really there to sort of shake you and be like, look at this, look at what happened. And the feature film has some really interesting elements of love and redemption that the short didn't have, and I think has a lot to offer in terms of the culture and what's going on inside of the African American community, and how I think we're going to find healing. And Ray and I have talked about it a bunch, in terms of working together on that project, being arm in arm and side by side is really important. It's important that our cast and our crew are diverse, and that we all work together to tell a story. So
that's incredible. Well, can't wait to read the script one day.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see the film one day. I guess we'll wrap it up because we don't want to keep you for too much longer.
Yeah.
I was hoping your in-law or whoever that was would come back in the room and say hi.
It's my brother. It was my brother.
Brother would come back.
Yeah. So,
cool. Well, Andrew Howell, director,
came in for a scotch.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would also interrupt for scotch.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
I'm good. Thank you, Andrew.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew Howell,
Yeah,
director,
thank you, guys.
DP, executive producer of 83 Days. The hopefully we'll see 83 Days soon. The potential Oscar nominated short film.
Yep. One of those things. Absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast and for all the work on the project. Just can't say enough about, working together with you guys. So thank you.
Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.
See ya. Southern Fried Post is produced by Sean McCain and me, Walker Whited. Music and incidentals by Tyler Kitchens. All recordings done in studio at W Squared Media. Follow us on Instagram at W Squared Media for more information on new episodes. Thanks for listening.